I was standing in the OR watching myself die. The heart monitor screamed into a flatline. Nurses panicked. I watched them push down on my chest. I watched my own body jerk under the force of CPR. And I couldn't move. Then I saw something no living man should see. My daughter's casket. White. Small. Covered in pink roses. In the crowd, someone stood alone, crying quietly. And it was her. The one who ended my life. The one I now had to save. Would you save the person who killed you if it meant saving the one you love most? Thank you to everyone who's been sharing your experiences with life, death, and what lies in between. If you've ever felt like you slipped out of your body even for a moment, you were not alone. Have you ever seen something you couldn't explain? A bright light? A strange sound no one else heard? This isn't just my story. It's a warning. And maybe a second chance. My name is Dr. Adam Keller. I'm 47 years old. I'm a heart surgeon. Or, I was. I lived in Denver, Colorado with my wife, Julia, and our daughter, Emma. She just turned 13. To the outside world, I had everything. A solid marriage. A brilliant reputation. My name was on a hospital wing. I'd been featured in medical journals, honored in conferences from San Diego to Boston. But success has a price. You lose dinners, birthdays, pieces of yourself. You become a ghost in your own home, walking past your child's drawings taped to the fridge without really seeing them. And lately, something had changed in me. 3 weeks before I died, I lost a patient. A boy, 12 years old. I did everything right, but something went wrong. The anesthesia levels were off. He never woke up. And I never told the full story. Not to the family. Not to my staff. Not even to myself. That guilt sat on my chest every night like a stone. It made me question my hands, my instincts, my worth. And worst of all, it made me afraid of walking back into that OR. April 12th. I was scheduled to perform a routine laparoscopic cholecystectomy, a gallbladder removal. Straightforward. Low risk. We'd done it 1,000 times. I wasn't even the lead surgeon, I was assisting. It was supposed to be easy. It was supposed to be safe. I remember the light above the table, bright and humming. I remember joking with the scrub nurse. I remember seeing her, Dr. Lydia Monroe, the anesthesiologist. Sharp. Controlled. Cold as steel. Then something shifted. My chest tightened. A strange flutter like a bird panicking in my ribs. I felt hot. Dizzy. I blinked. And the world tilted sideways. I collapsed mid-procedure. Voices blurred into static. Pain shot down my left arm, then nothing. Just dark. And then clarity. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in the OR. I was above it. Floating like mist, watching the team swarm around my body. My hands were limp. My eyes were open but empty. They tried to revive me. Shouts. Defibrillators. Someone crying. But I wasn't there anymore. Everything around me faded until there was nothing but light. Not warm, golden light. Not heavenly in the way I expected. This was silver. Cold. Almost electric. Like being inside a storm without the thunder. Then it began. The collapse of time. Flashes exploded in every direction. People's lives. Moments. Memories. I saw a woman in India giving birth. A soldier in 1943 writing a letter in the snow. A teenage boy crying over a report card in 1997. It wasn't random. Time had cracked open and I was moving through it. And then, I saw her. My daughter Emma. Older. 16 maybe. Standing at the edge of a road screaming. A car was coming. I tried to run to her to call out, but I was frozen. Next to her stood someone else. Watching. Crying. It was Dr. Lydia Monroe. Her hand reached out, but too late. Emma was gone. And I broke. Then I heard a voice. Not from outside. From within. The one who took your life holds the key to saving hers. The light began to twist. I was being pulled. Downward. Back. I opened my eyes in the ICU. Alive. Sweating. Sobbing. And the first person I saw was Lydia. She was holding my hand. But her eyes weren't filled with relief. They were filled with fear. Asterisk, why are you afraid of me? I whispered. And she said nothing. The room was sterile, humming with machines. Everything looked normal, but nothing felt normal. My wife Julia was there, tears dried into her cheeks, clutching my hand like she was afraid I'd vanish again. Lydia stood in the corner, arms crossed, staring at the floor like it might swallow her whole. I tried to speak. What happened? Julia answered first. Cardiac arrest. They said you collapsed during the procedure. No warning. Your heart stopped for 5 minutes. 5 minutes. But I had seen entire lives. Lydia stepped closer, offering a stiff smile. You're lucky, Dr. Keller. You're a... Don't lie to me, I interrupted. Everyone went still. Julia looked between us, confused. Lydia's expression hardened, but her hands trembled. I knew then. She knew something. And maybe she thought I did too. That night, I didn't sleep. Not truly. Every time I closed my eyes, the silver light returned. But it wasn't peaceful anymore. It was spinning, spiraling like a clock falling apart. And inside it, I saw people. Some I recognized, others I didn't. But every image felt important. Like a thread in a story I couldn't quite read. A little girl crying over a lost dog. A man kneeling beside a grave, whispering, I'm sorry. A woman clutching a syringe in a hotel bathroom. And over Emma. Screaming. Running. Dying. And always Lydia. Standing there. Watching. Not stopping it. The third time I drifted back into that space, half asleep, half something else, I wasn't alone. From the silver void stepped a figure. Tall, almost formless, like smoke shaped by a memory. No face. No gender. But light radiated from it, not warm, not cold. Just truth. When it spoke, it wasn't in words. It was in knowing. You are not here by accident. You were taken to see. Because you are meant to act. Time is unraveling. Not forward. Not backward. It folds. It bleeds. And in its collapse, one life becomes the key to many. You've seen the end. Now find the beginning. I reached for it, desperate to understand. And the light exploded. When I came to, it was morning. But the hospital felt different. I felt different. Sounds were sharper. People's voices echoed, even when they whispered. And worse, I could feel their fear. A nurse passed me and I knew. Instantly, she was hiding a pregnancy from her boyfriend. A doctor nodded politely and I sensed his shame. He was drinking again. It was like part of me stayed plugged in to that collapsing universe. I told Julia. I begged her to believe me. She smiled gently and called it stress. I told my best friend, Aaron. He laughed and asked what pills they gave me. I told Lydia, and she didn't laugh. She just said, you shouldn't have come back. I started digging. Medical records. Monitor logs. Anesthesia levels. The anesthesia. My chart showed the dosage was high, too high. For someone healthy, it could induce cardiac stress. For someone already rattled with guilt and insomnia, like me, could kill. And only one person had signed off on that dosage. Lydia Monroe. Why? Was it revenge? Jealousy? A mistake? Or was it connected to something deeper? I confronted her again, this time not as a patient, but as a man who died. You dosed me wrong. You know it. I saw it. Lydia didn't blink. She said one thing. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Then she walked away. Later that night, I had another vision. But this one wasn't a memory. It was a possibility. I saw Lydia sitting at a desk in a dark office. She looked older, broken, crying. And beside her was a letter. My daughter's name, Emma Keller, was written on it. The voice from the void returned. You can still change the future. But to save the girl, you must forgive the hand that struck you down. Would you save the one who ended your life if it meant saving hers? And I knew this wasn't just about me. Lydia was going to try to kill herself. And somehow saving her was the only way to stop Emma's death. I hadn't left the hospital, but part of me hadn't come back either. The vision still came, flickers like static on a broken TV. I'd turn a hallway corner and see people walking through memories. I'd blink and see moments from my own life, Emma's birth, my mother's funeral, Julia walking down the aisle, right there in front of me like ghosts with purpose. But one image repeated more than any other. Lydia in her dark apartment, bottle of pills on the table. A goodbye letter with my daughter's name. I didn't understand it fully. How were Lydia and Emma connected? Why would Lydia write to my daughter after killing me? I couldn't ask Julia. She barely spoke to me now, just scared I'd drop dead again. I couldn't ask Aaron. He still thought I was coping with trauma. I had one option left. I found her walking out of her shift. Pale, hollow-eyed. I blocked her path. You have 5 minutes, she muttered. After that, I'm calling security. I said 2 words. The letter. Her eyes widened, and she froze. I saw it, Lydia. Your apartment. The pills. The letter to Emma. Why? Her jaw tightened. Then she laughed. A dry, broken sound. You saw it? In your visions? I nodded. She looked away. You weren't supposed to die, Adam. I wanted to hurt you, shake you, but I didn't want that. I was just trying to make you feel something. Anything. After what you did. Now it was my turn to freeze. What I did. Lydia stepped close. Her voice shook. 3 years ago, your wife had an abortion. I was the nurse who prepped her. That child was mine too. You don't remember, do you? It was one night. One mistake. You were drunk, angry, fighting with Julia. I was just trying to help. You ruined both our lives and you never even looked back. I had no words. The floor might as well have opened under me. You moved on. She didn't. She spiraled. Tried to OD. I was the one who found her. I took care of her. I got her clean. So when I saw your name on that surgical board, I snapped. I dosed you high enough to scare you. To wake you up. But your heart gave out. I couldn't breathe. Everything I saw in the beyond made sense now. Not literally. Not perfectly. But emotionally. Spiritually. This was the collapse of time, not a timeline, but a collapse of the heart. Emma wasn't just in danger physically. She was at risk of repeating everything. The lies. The betrayal. The cycle of rage and silence and shame. Lydia hadn't just written Emma's name on that letter because of guilt. She had watched her grow up. Watched her smile, dance, and laugh in the hospital waiting rooms. I never stopped loving her, Lydia whispered. She was almost mine too. I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I just said, "Where's the letter?" Lydia hesitated. And then finally, broke. She handed me a folded envelope from her purse. Inside, Emma, you won't remember me the way I remember you, but I've watched you become the light I never had. I wanted your father to feel what I felt. That pain, that hole, that loss. But now, I just want him to fix it. I believe he can. Maybe that's what second chances are for. Lydia. I looked up. Lydia was already walking away. That night I dreamed again. This time I was standing in the silver corridor. But I wasn't alone. Emma stood beside me, older, laughing. Then Lydia appeared, holding Emma's hand. Then Julia, smiling. I turned and saw myself, watching it all, from behind glass. The light being appeared once more. You were never meant to stop death, it whispered. You were meant to stop the dying that happens while we live. I opened my eyes, and it was morning. It took time, but I confessed the affair to Julia. It shattered everything, but it also released something that had festered for years. Emma cried, asked hard questions, but she didn't run. Lydia entered rehab, wrote a real letter this time, signed it with love, not regret. And me? I still see things sometimes. Not always. But when it happens, it's never about me. It's always a moment meant for someone else. 2 weeks ago, I got a call from a hospital in Arizona. A patient flatlined for 6 minutes on the table. When he came back, the first thing he said was, "Tell Adam Keller the light says thank you." I've never been to Arizona, but somehow the message found me anyway. Do you believe time can collapse? That death isn't the end, but a mirror we must look into? Could you ever forgive someone who tried to hurt you? Have you seen things that made you question what's real? Tell me below. I want to hear your story. And as always, thank you for watching. You're not alone in this mystery.